اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the brothers and the people that's organised this event, that's invited myself down and Hussein to come and to give you an insight onto our journey to Islam and how we were guided onto this beloved religion, this beloved way of life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want to touch on some points in my journey to finding this path. There's some key points that I've highlighted in my past that's got me to where I am today. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Musa. I'm from South London, Brixton area, Peckham area. I do some small dawah projects within London, dealing with the youth with Roadside to Islam, and also my brother here was saying Street of Deen. We try to go back into the community and go back to the Shahada, the youth, those that's caught up in some sort of gang life or caught up in some sort of neighbourhood wars and turns and stuff like that. My story begins with the most important part that I would say will be the death of my father at an early age. At the age of 9, my father passed away, and this was my first encounter with death. And when I was in primary school, this is something that, being the eldest of 3, I never understood its reality to how I understand it now, but I had some understanding of what it meant to understand that he wasn't ever going to come back again in this life. At an early upbringing in my family, we had a Christian upbringing, so we were close to the church in that I would attend Sunday school, and I also attend church on a Sunday. It was something that was spoken in the sermons about death and life after death, so I had some inclination to the hereafter. I felt, being the eldest out of my brothers and my sisters, that even without saying it or without it being forced upon me, I felt that I had to now stand up and be counted, for lack of better words. So within this, growing up in a neighbourhood, South London, Peckham, Waterford, I was just like any normal other kid, go out, go to school, play football, and I grew up with a group of friends in the community, and we would meet up after school, play football in a football pitch. But as we got older in life, we weren't longer any like young children. We became adults in our adolescence. We became teenagers. As we became teenagers, without calling ourselves a gang, we formed a gang. How do I explain this? This is, if I left my area and some kids on the street would ask me, where are you from? And I would say Waterford, they would associate me with the gang around the area. So without knowing, they would say, do you know such and such? I'll be like, yes. They'll be like, so are you from that gang? And I'll be like, yeah. So without actually putting myself in the gang, I just fell into it because of the association that I had with my friends and how we grew up. So we went from being small kids that were just playing out like any other child or any other children in the community to sticking together through this stage that we went through to forming into a gang, which was known as the Woody Road Boys / Peckham Boys, South London. And with this was my first taste of gang life, in that we started to have fights with children from other communities based upon the area that we grew up in. I couldn't really go to areas such as Brixton or areas such as Lewisham, which is another borough that is not too far from where I grew up. So this was my first taste of understanding that. I didn't understand it in terms of how I went from just being a normal boy from Warfield to now representing the borough and having to carry this on my back wherever I went. But like anybody else, I would say peer pressure, and other than that, I just took it on my shoulders and I just went through it as everybody else did. We got to an age where school and meeting new friends, I would say secondary school is where I kind of started off getting that freedom, because in primary school you're local, your parents take you to school, they pick you up. Secondary school is that first time where you're like, okay, your mum says get on a bus and travel 20 minutes away from home, and you've got that freedom, she's not there, you're on your own, you've got mobile phone, you've got that sort of freedom. So I started to meet new people from different areas. My know-how and streetwise started to get a bit better. I started to understand more stuff, and I started to get into selling drugs. I met a boy that he was not older than, I would say, 12 years old, and he always had the newest stuff and things like that. And he told me about selling drugs, and that it was a quick way to make money and to do it for the elders in the community. I would say by the time I was 14 years old, I was making around £500 a month, which to me was big. I thought I was, I thought that I was the man. So at this age, 14 years old, I remember me and my friends, we went to a car auction and we put some money together and we bought ourselves a Ford, I think Ford One Day, I can't remember. Didn't have no tax, insurance, everything like that. We put all our money together and we bought it, and we used to drive it, and it was my turn to look after the car. So here I go, on the way to school, I put my blazer on, jump in the car, and I drive it to school, my school uniform, thinking that I'm the man, and I go past a bus stop that I always used to go to see my friends that, you meet up at a bus stop and you go to school. So here I come now on Monday morning, drive past the bus stop, and I dip it, and everyone sees me and they're like, what's going on, he's in the car. They all start chasing the car, and it must have been a sight to see for everybody else that was looking, seeing a young school kid in a blazer driving, all his friends chased the car, about 3 or 4 jumped in, we drove to school. On that day I remember one of my head teachers coming up to me and saying there's a rumour that you drove a car to school, and I said, if you believe that, you believe anything. And that was that. So by the time now I'll say I was about going to 6th form, still making money, still in this gang, still getting into gang fights and beef and stuff like that, not to go into too much detail. When I went to college, because even though I was in a gang and I was doing what I was doing, I still used to do my work. I still managed to attain some B's and C's in my GCSE. I was able to go to 6th form and study business studies. And one of the elders in the community, I call this the proposition in my time, where they came to me and they came in a brand new BMW, they pulled up, they told me to get in, I got in, they took me out, we had something to eat, they bought me some trainers. So I thought, okay, I'm rolling with the big guys, I thought I made it, sort of thing. And then they said to me, we know that you're studying and you're doing what you're doing, but we're going to offer you, if you come work for us, £1,000 a week, if you just, come work for us kind of thing, but you can't go to college, or you can't be going and doing your college studies and stuff like that. We need you out on the streets from around 10 in the morning till 9 in the night. So about an 11-hour shift. So me being about 17 at this age, 18, being offered £1,000 a week, I couldn't turn it down. So I dropped out of school. I dropped out of 6th form at that time, and I started working for the elders around, and they kept to their word. They were giving me £1,000 a week. I was spending it. I was traveling. I went to Greece. I went to France, Italy. I used to just travel around with the brothers, the man them. At the time, we used to just go party in Iron Apple, things like this. And I realized though, the money that I was making then was nothing compared to what I was getting paid. So I would make them like £1,000 a day, and they'll pay me £1,000 a week. So you do the maths, because you guys were in university, so you're better than me. So that was it then. So I started to think out of the box. I started to grow older, and not too far from them, one of the elders from the community, one of the elder brothers, he was only, I would say, 22 years old, but to me being 17, 18, I saw him as one of the elder brothers, or the elder man then. He got shot outside the nightclub in the West End, and he passed away, and we buried him. And that was the first loss that I had in the community, through the man then, or someone that we knew, or someone that I looked up to. He had the BMW, he had the motorbike R1, he had the girls, he had the clothes, he had everything. And him being shot dead at the age of 21, I remember going to his funeral, and his bike, his car, his watch, his trainers, they were all being worn by different people amongst his family. So his brother was wearing one watch, his other brother was driving his car, and I realized not more than 2 weeks, nobody could have touched his belongings, because he was, it was something that you couldn't do. That was his stuff. And 2 weeks later, he was dead in the box, and his things were just being shared amongst his family members so quick. So I started to think, like, this was my first thinking into what's life about? How is it that this guy 2 weeks ago was alive, and 2 weeks later he's dead, and his possessions are being shared about amongst his family members? You know, it was like at his wake, it was more of like a party. Everybody comes around. The brothers, like the man them came around. There was women around. People were drinking. It was more of a party. But I was thinking, like, what's going on here? It didn't sit right with me. But I just carried on as normal. We got involved into the person that shot him. So now this brought a new beef to the community, or to the brothers, or to the man them at the time. I keep on saying brothers, but we are Muslim anyway. But this was my first kind of thinking of what's life about? What's really going on out here? Is this something that I want to fall into, or is this the way that I want to go down? So I kept on doing what I do best, and that was just being me and living in the community and doing my thing. I would say after this came me owning my first gun. I owned my first gun about 20 years old. I bought a gun. I felt like I needed it just to get by after seeing that he got shot and he passed away. So now I used to come out of it all the time. I was just, basically I was angry. I was looking for an excuse to try and get revenge to what happened to somebody that I looked up to, somebody that I respected. And I remember being stupid, I hid it in a closet in my house, and my mum found it, and she started going berserk. And even though I was gangster, I couldn't deal with my mum, you know what I'm saying? So she was on different levels, so she started going berserk, screaming. She was like, whose is this? Straight away I blamed it on my older cousin. I was like, it's his, I've never seen it in my life. He came around, and when he came around, she was going crazy saying, is this yours? He looked at me, I just gave him the eyes like, and shit. So he said it was his, and what he done, she gave it to him, she said, never bring it back. So I kind of rang him about 2 hours later, like, can I get my thing back? He was like, nah, it's mine. He said it's mine, and that was gone. But with this, I bought another gun, carried on, going down the same path, trying to get revenge to what happened to the elder in our community. And it was a time of raving, getting into gunfights, getting chased, chasing people. It was just a time of, I'll say that was the gang warfare time in my life, where we got involved in a lot of street gangs in South London. A lot of murders took place, a lot of people passed away, and it was hectic. And at the same time, I was still working for the elder brothers. They were still paying me my £1,000 a week. I was still fresh to death, so I was just loving it. And I didn't really, even though I was thinking about my life, the money kind of made me just put it to the back of my head and just carry on living. I got to the point where I went to prison for the first time for driving. So while I was selling drugs for the elders, what I would do if I ever got chased by police, I would throw away the drugs and then get caught. And then when I get caught, they say, "Why did you run?" I'd say, "I don't have a license, I don't have insurance." So then that would make them not look for the drugs that I threw away. They used to just think I was a joyrider or something like that. So I ended up going to prison for, I would say, 6 months for repeatedly getting chased by police and not stopping. So I would make sure, even though I threw the drugs, I would take them on a chase in and out the streets, back and forth, just so it seemed that I was just trying to get away because of nothing other than that. I was, driving without a license. So in this time in prison, it gave me time to think. First time I kind of met Muslims. Prison is like a breakdown of different groups. You have black brothers, you have Asians, you have whites, but then you have the Muslims that are just multicultural. Everyone's in it. You've got the whites in there, you've got the blacks, you've got they're all together, and everybody else is split. So that was my first time I kind of met Muslims that looked like me and they were practicing, or they seemed to be bad boys, but when it came to prayer, when it came to Ramadan, I think it was Ramadan inside there, that they were able to lock the world out and do what they had to do in terms of their religion. So I came out of prison anyway with a different outlook to life. I started the music scene with my same man then. I started rapping with a crew called OTB and Spare No One, and some guys from East London. So I started rapping with people like Giggs, Ghetto, and Bark Swift. A lot of people that are still in the music industry today started making music, started selling CDs. This was another revenue. We started to make some money through the music, even though it was underground. But as soon as I came out, the elders put me back on the block. I was making the same money, nothing didn't change. But just the music, I had a love for music, and I felt like we were getting booked and doing stage shows. We were traveling up and down the country, so I felt like maybe this was a way out for me. So this was something that I took serious. But being still selling drugs and stuff, I ended up going back to prison for the second time. And it's a funny thing because we were driving, going to the West End, Selfridges, to buy some clothes. We were going out that night, and I had my knife on me. And in them times, I always carried a knife with me just to be safe, because we had done so much things in the past, especially West End. West End's a place where, when you go to the West End of London, you have all the gangs that congregate in this area to do shopping. So people from Brixton, Peckham, Warford, Lewisham, everybody is up there. So this is the prime place for you to bump into somebody that you don't want to bump into. So you find that sometimes, even till today, a lot of people get killed at the West End. And this is the main thing, is that they go up there to do shopping and they bump into the wrong people. So on the way up there, we was driving in the X5, 4 of us, and a car. These are my first steps to Islam, and looking back at it now, I can see how the Qadr of Allah worked and how everything fell into place. Is that a car crashed in front of us. It had nothing to do with us, but we stopped over to help, to just see if they was okay. Then the police came over, and they stopped us. And even though I had, untold opportunity to get rid of my knife, even some of the little kids from the community, they came and said, "Do you have anything on you? Give it to me, I'll run away with it." I was like, "No, I'm cool, I can't." Because I've been stopped by police lots of times. I go into clubs with worse than knives and always get away with it. So I thought I was okay. But anyway, the police searched me, but I'm still thinking I'm okay. But I think the policeman searched me, felt the knife, and pretended that he didn't feel it. So I thought I was relaxed, I thought I was calm, I thought I was getting back in the car. And then just when I was getting in, he bear hugged me and whatever, I ended up getting arrested. And then I went back to prison for another, I think 7 or 8 months for that. And then on my way in, I was in the the van that takes you into prison. And in this van I had two brothers, two Asian brothers, Hassan and Hussein. And they were making a lot of noise, speaking, I think in Urdu, and I was telling them shut up. So I think they were trying to put a story together. Or they got nicked for something and they're talking and they're just making noise. And I'm telling them shut up, and they're telling me you shut up. Then we start getting into arguments. And I'm saying as soon as they open my door, I'm gonna rip your head off. They're saying whatever. We're just shouting, and I'm thinking, even though I can't see them, I'm thinking they're most probably gonna be some two big guys, and we're gonna have to fight it out. As soon as they opened the door, it was just some short guys, and they weren't on nothing. But they were just like, oh no, don't worry. Like they just made up some story, and I just left them alone. But they booked us into the prison. He's gone left, I've gone my own way, and then they didn't have enough they didn't have enough spare cells, so they put us all together in a 3-man cell. Prison's not a place that Muslims really want to be going to. I was going to touch on to that, but as it's more about my journey, I'm just going to keep to the story. Anyway, so we're in the prison cell together. It's Ramadan. They make wudu, they pray Maghrib, if I can remember, and I'm just sitting there. Two of them, they're praying. I'm watching them, thinking, okay, I'm just seeing what they're getting up to. And prior to getting arrested, something that I missed out was that my mom had a Quran that was given to her by a family friend, and she wanted to get rid of it, but she didn't feel like it was right for her to throw it away. So what she done, she told me to keep it, and maybe it could be a way for me, or it could be a guidance, because I was giving her a lot of trouble and she was going through a lot of heartache. So I kept on to it. I read about 2 pages, then I slammed it shut and I just left it on the shelf somewhere in my room, and I just kept on living my life. But I remember seeing the brothers praying in the cell, and it just came back to me like, I've got this book at home. So I felt like, let me have a read of it while I'm here now. So I started reading anyway. But again, I was just thinking at this time, I've got some beef on the outside, and the people that we were having a beef with, they were a gang, a Muslim gang, that was going around, threatening people and using Islam as a way to threaten people. If you wasn't Muslim, they were going to come and take your belongings, whatever you had, and things like this. So I felt like I had to be on the other side. I had to become even more Christian than ever, just to fight these youths that were going around in London with this Muslim theme and robbing and stealing and doing what they were doing. So at the time when I was reading about Islam in the prison, even though I was starting to get a liking for it, I was thinking, what happens when I come out, tell my friends that I'm Muslim, and the people that we've been fighting for the last year, they're my brothers, and I can't do this no more. So I had this hurdle that I didn't know how to deal with. So the best thing for me was to just leave Islam alone. So I just kept on leaving it alone. But as it was Ramadan, and it felt more easier for me to read. I felt easier for me to accept the religion. It was just easier. We know from the hadith of the Prophet that the shaitan is locked away in the month of Ramadan. So that's how I look back to it now, feeling that because the shaitan was away, it was easy for me to, accept the religion. But anyway, I think about 2-3 weeks within me being locked up, I accepted Islam. The 2 Asian brothers that I met, Hassan and Hussein, and they said to me, because I wasn't having it, but they saw that I wanted to accept it. They said to me, look, Islam's like a plate of food. Even though they weren't practicing martial law, they were guided and aided in this struggle. They had some good statements and simple statements. And one statement they said to me that was able for me to accept Islam was like, they said, look at it as a plate of food. I'm going to offer you something to eat. You taste it. If you like it, carry on eating. If you don't, just put it to the side. So I thought about that. And I said, no problem, I'll accept Islam. If I don't like it, I'll put it to the side. And if I like it, I'll continue. So straight away, as soon as they said it like that, because there's something that comes to somebody before accepting Islam, they feel like once they become Muslim, they can never leave. They feel like it's just one way. Yeah, Shaitan doesn't allow you to have that understanding that if you don't like it, you can leave. So if you feel to yourself, if I become Muslim, that's it. There's no way out, I'm trapped. So you're thinking, I can't do it. But they said to me, take it if you like it, carry on. So I accepted Islam, and I was released from prison. On my release from prison, I knew that I was going to face a lot of stick with the mandem and how to explain it. So I didn't really want to bring it out. I didn't really want to tell nobody that I was Muslim there. So I was quiet. But I rang one of my close friends that I grew up with. His name is Abdul Malik now. And I said to him, like, look man, I've got something to tell you. And he was like, no, I've got something to tell you, man. I was like, no, let me tell you first. He was like, nah, man, I'm Muslim. I said, what? He said, I'm Muslim. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you can't be Muslim, man. You can't do that. He said, what do you mean we can't do that? He said, because I'm Muslim. And he was like, what do you mean? So we just started going over it. We couldn't believe it. We met up, and then we said, so how are we going to tell everyone else that we're Muslim? And so I don't care, no, it's whatever. If they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. No, this is our thing, isn't it? So we went back, we told the man that we're Muslim, and everybody was like, whatever, give you 2 weeks. You're going to be back on the same old, innit? Give you 2 weeks. So as time went on, I was still rapping. You know, gigs were starting to blow up. We were starting to get a lot of, you know, shows and bookings. I was, you know, I was accompanying and doing some stuff. So I was still rapping, but I think 2 months, 3 months after my release. After I think 6 months of being out of prison, I kind of looked back to myself and I said, you know what, Allah has favoured me with this religion, and I've been living this life looking for a way out. The way out has come. How can I go back? So I said, you know what, I need to get out of this. So I just booked a flight, went to Egypt. I think I spent 2 months there, and I just, you know, took my phones off, had no contact with nobody, went out to Egypt. Because Abdul Malik was clever. As soon as he came out, he booked his flight and he was gone. So he kind of beat me to it. So he was in Egypt and he was like, listen man, just come out here, forget all the man there and whatever. So I kind of booked my flight, I went out there, I met him, we sat down, and we talked about our life, our background, where we came from. We spent some time with the Arabs in Egypt. We spent some time, you know, in the masajids, learning some Arabic and learning Quran. And it was a good time for me to think about what I wanted to do in my life and where I wanted to go. So I came back, I kind of locked everybody off, told them I can't do it, you know. Even though I kept connection with my friends, they kind of realized that I was going to be serious now, because when I went to Egypt, I wasn't wearing a fold. I came back, started wearing white fold, kufi, walking up and down the places that I used to go. I saw a lot of people that I'd done some bad things to in the past, and even then, like I remember seeing one guy that I chased in the past, and you know, I chased him. I think I chased him with a stun gun, and he was running, and I was chasing him, and he was slipping, and he was like, he was very afraid, and I can see it in his eyes that I put that fear in him. So when I saw him again, I knew he had grown up, I had grown up, but I knew that he wasn't happy, and it had got around that he changed in his ways, and he was, you know, shooting people and stuff like that. So I saw him and he had a pouch on him, and I knew in that pouch he had a gun. So he reached for his pouch, and his first reaction was to try and shoot me. So he drew his gun out, but then when the closer he got to me, because he was only looking at my face, he wasn't looking at my outer appearance. He can only just remember that I chased him and I put that fear in him. So he was thinking he's going to get his own. But the closer he got, he saw I was wearing a fold, he saw I was wearing a kufi, he just kind of put it back, looked at me, I looked at him, and he was like, he just nodded his way. That was one of the first favours that Allah gave to me, that Allah favoured me with being a Muslim and dressing and looking and sticking to what I believed in, that I saw that Allah started to change the hearts of the people that I'd done some stuff to in the past, and they were starting to overlook some of the things that we're doing. So this is one thing also that I would like to say to the Muslims, is that when dealing with non-Muslims, we got to really stick to our values and stick to our way of life, and not really feel that we need to adapt in terms of changing anything that's been revealed to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. we need to understand that we've been favoured with the best way of life. There isn't a better way of life, and there isn't nothing that's going to come that's going to better what we have. And the example is that we have the cure. We're not the ones that's ill. So you trying to pretend you're ill to an ill person just to make him feel better is not going to work when you have the cure. You really have to stand forth and let them know that we have the cure. We're able to help you. We're not going to force you to take it, but if you want it, we're here, and you know we're here to help you whenever you want it. It's not for us to try and mimic, you know, the non-Muslims in terms of their way of life, and other than that, it doesn't mean that we don't keep some time of connection with them, or you know we don't spend time with them, because many of us, like my brother was saying here, we have family members that are not Muslim. I have 2 brothers, they're atheists, or that's not, was it? Yeah, that's it. And they don't really believe in much. But, you know, we're still close. I still do a lot of things for them. But anyway, after quitting the road, started practicing the religion, started to take Islam more serious. I got married, and I left the music, I left everything behind.